weekends free. Again, we've never had that our entire lives. So that's really nice. But I went down to Stony Creek this weekend to watch one of my friend's daughters play, which is like the big hockey tournament. And it was nice to be around it, but there's certainly, there's so much drama and so much like intensity at that level. And it just was like, oh yeah, this is the entire family's dedicated weekend. So anyways, I at this point, I'm not really missing it. Like, it's just kind of nice to be able to have time to spend with different teams and friends and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Sammy, was this the like the U19 Stony Creek, all that age group, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I used to coach the women's team, that was always such a big weekend, a big trip for them to go to that.
Yeah, my friend was in from Winnipeg, so his daughter played, and then you get there's so many people you see, like Brittany Howard, who just retired from the PWHL Toronto, who played with me with the Toronto Six, is now coaching Pittsburgh. So got to see her U19 team play, I guess, U19. So all the scouts were there because none of the NCAA programs have started. So there's probably like a row of 35 NCAA scouts up in the stands, and which of course a lot of them I know. Fun to see a lot of those people too. So
yeah,
it was fun.
Let me ask you something. As far as with the women committing, because I got a friend that he's Division III, and he's always felt like by the time it's January, most of the women know what they're doing and where they're going to go. Is that correct? Because it's different with the men. The men, especially at like the Division II, Division III level, seem to hang on until April, hoping that they're going to get quote unquote something better. But do the women, are they generally like to know where they're going by January? Is that accurate?
Yeah, Peter, I would say that even the majority, like grade 10, 11, kind of seem to know. I've counseled a lot of parents of late whose daughters don't know at the beginning of grade 11 and are very worried, are very fearful. And I say, it doesn't matter. Like if your daughter is of that level, something will pan out. There's so many options. But I think, for the big schools, they're getting the kids to pre-commit in grade 9, grade
Sure.
10.
Yeah.
And then they kind of fall into the cycle of this many D are coming in, this many. But a lot of NCAA coaches seem to renege on some of those commitments too, which is also hard. So just because you think you're going, but yeah, so I would say by January, the majority have an idea of where they're going. But there's also this extra level of pressure on the parents and the kids that they're the only one that doesn't know. Well, if you're the only one that doesn't know, then there's all these scouts that are still looking for teams that you probably have the pick of the litter at that point. I feel like a lot overcommit too early, in my opinion. But I guess there is something to be said for knowing, having an idea of where you're going. But the majority would come into this PWHL, or it's not called PWHL anymore because that's the new league, under 22 elite. The majority would come into that league kind of having an idea of where they're going.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, like I say, with even like I said, at the Division III level, if your team is sort of like the curse, like you want the better players, right? But if that kid's team made the playoffs, they wouldn't commit till the end of April, maybe the 1st of May, just waiting for whatever, I don't know, whatever that best offer.
Right. That's kind of what U Sports runs into up here. The Canadian universities are kind of waiting for the kids to either decommit to some schools or get left out of the fray. And yeah, it is just so much pressure on just seeing the grouping of scouts up there at this tournament, and the kids are grade 9, grade 10, it's a lot.
Yeah. I see Mike Benelli there. Mike, did your truck break down or something? And why are you not somewhere going somewhere doing something?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, hey, this is Thursday. I can see if these guys are on the call here today. Pretty good.
Mike, yeah. I got a question. I know you joined and heard the conversation. We've been all over the map. I want to know I've joined you on Instagram.
Whoa, Wally.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah, Wally is all over Instagram. It's great.
I love it.
and I'm really finding you're doing a lot of your own podcasts, Mike, and doing a lot of promoting the game and the good of the game and work in not just ice hockey, but you're doing other things on the side. Here we are talking about ice hockey, and the major dilemma is aspirations of parents and kids to get a scholarship. I think that's in so-called elite hockey.
Yeah.
That becomes a distraction and an unhealthy kind of environment. And in the work you do, are you facing that? Is that part of something you deal with?
Yeah, so here in Connecticut, I actually work with an organization that does, so I'm working actually helping build a U19 girls program right now. It's their U19 national program, so doing all their training and kind of mentoring and stepping them through the process of these girls aren't committed yet to colleges, so they're kind of in the middle, right? They're probably could have went to school, taking some schooling online. But they're really trying to, almost like the junior version of girls hockey, which has been fun. But there's a lot, like to Sammy Joe's point, there's a lot of stressors there and a lot of FOMO and, a lot of, hey, I haven't been picked up yet. What does that mean for me? And then I've also been working with the Pee Wee Quebec and Brick tryouts for a couple of different organizations, like going in and helping them. And that, for 9-year-olds, it is unbelievable the expectations put on these kids and where they should end up. It's just not, I don't know. I have a different view of it because I just don't think it's fair from a organizational point of view.
What are the expectations? What's the?
I mean, I think the running theme right now is if you make a Brick team when you're, or the Pee Wee Quebec team, you're probably gonna play pro hockey.
Oh my goodness.
So if you're in that mix,
Okay.
at 9, 10, 11 years old, then
So Mike,
you just double down on that.
You can go back and statistically check that, right? Has anybody done that?
Yeah, well, so I did, and shockingly, I mean, the problem is it's actually it's pretty accurate. I mean, and again, I think that because I think the theory is what happens is once the kids get identified early, those now kids do much, much more. And, they're probably great athletes to begin with if they're competent at that age. And then
probably they have the wealth to be able to get into those teams.
Listen, there's no Hyundais in the parking lot. It's basic. And there's no 83 Toyotas. It's Range Rovers and Beamers and not Apple. What's that new car? The Tesla truck. Like that's all it is. I mean, it's crazy. The money is outrageous, and it's we just keep feeding it. So I think that it is like for what I'm doing, you see it earlier and earlier and earlier, and then you're looking at 9-year-olds that they're kind of formulating their career.
But it is kind of manifest destiny. Like if they are the ones getting there, like that's tough.
Well, they are. I mean, the stats. I mean, again, is it 90%? No, it's probably. I bet you it's pretty close to like. I bet you if you took a roster of kids, like look at Zegras' year, right? You take a roster of those kids from Quebec, and I think every single one of them played Division I college hockey. So, and then a big number are playing pro hockey right now. So it's a big number, but the problem is it's not like back in the day. I think it's getting bigger and bigger because the pool is getting tighter and tighter earlier and earlier. So kids are getting knocked out of that. So it's just like you said, it basically is the pressure to get into that river is really high because I think when people feel like they don't get in, they feel like they've missed an opportunity to continue you know,
Yeah, I
their
mean, I
elite
think
hockey career.
in hockey we need to do a better job of letting people know. Like, I don't think that that's a bad thing. You know, if people want to aspire to the elitism, that's okay. But
Yeah.
that there needs to be more of a messaging that there is still some really great hockey available, and that there's still fun for the rest of your life, and that there's, yeah, everybody ends
Yeah.
up in recreational hockey at the age of 50 anyways.
Right. It all reverts back to an adult league, but I think beer league, right? But I think, Wally, to your point too, I have been doing a lot, like our kids play hockey podcast has actually gotten, you know, pretty big. We've had Pete on there a couple of times, but it's gotten really, you know, we've kind of expanded into our girls play hockey, and we're working with Sherry Hudspeth, who's, you know, she's now leading the Vegas Golden Knights. So we've been having some good guests.
That's awesome. And if you're spewing some of what Wally likes, that means it must be great.
It's all Wally Kozak stuff, so it's all good. It's basically, you know, it just gives us another platform to reach a different sector of hockey, and Sherry's done a good job, and I'm sure you'll get the call at some point, Sammy. But I think it's because we're just really, you know, we had Kim McCullough on I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and a couple Olympians, U.S. Olympians, and Megan Bozak was on, and you know, a couple of good women, and then our regular podcast is doing well too. But it all speaks to that. It all speaks to the do you have to make these decisions at 11? What do you do if you haven't? What's the anxiety of playing, especially like on the girls' side? Like, when do you switch over to playing with boys? Do you need to do that? You know, can you just play with girls your whole life? You know, so there's a lot of I mean, it's really been very educational for me to be on those you know, those podcasts as a host, because I learned so much just from the guests we have on.
That's awesome.
But they've been fun, and but again, it is you know, I think I've learned to lean towards the fact that the facts are the facts. These kids, there are early identified players that are really good, and they end up being really good adult players, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a whole nother world of the sport out there that's not all about making the PWHL or the NHL, and I think that's, you know, underutilized by a lot of parents until it's too late, right? Because, oh, I wish I wouldn't have had my kid quit playing soccer at 8 because they committed to hockey, and actually they're probably a much better soccer player, or they missed a whole piece of their life because they just weren't home. But you live and you learn, and I guess you wait for the next kid. try to make amends. I don't know. But yeah, I've missed these calls, Wally. I mean, I keep in track with your YouTube channel and everything, so I get to get on there and try to catch up on some of these the conversations you guys have.
Recently, I've been posting tons of drills that I personally have experienced, and I'm doing them with the U13 coaching staffs and players, and they're drills that I did with the national men's and women's team. They're teaching tactical skating and team tactics in a way that is really productive. I think it fills the skill gap. People work on skills, but they don't translate that into execution of the skills in the game, and that's where tactical skills come in. But as far as this, you know, the way my conversations have gone lately, Tom Malloy and I and Peter have been on. We've had a goaltending coach on, and Sammy, I wish I knew you were going to come on. Give me a heads up. I'll set up a call with Pasco.
I know Pasco. We did our elite goalie stuff together.
His book is pretty detailed. I talked to Dave Marcoux about it, who's got a great big goaltending business, worked with the Flames for years, and he and Pasco are really close. But he mentioned the details that he gets into can at sometimes be overwhelming, and distracting. And I'm sure they're scientifically validating, but in terms of getting something useful out of it to apply, I think serious goalies could read the book and would pick up so much information, or goalie coaches. He really expresses.
Well, if it's anything the way he is as a person, he's super energetic and he just talks a million miles. He is so intelligent and so smart. So if the book is anything like that, I'm sure that everybody can pick up something from it.
Well, my goal then, Sammy, is to get you and him on because, and Dave Marcoux said he would join us as well. And, I have questions from a minor hockey perspective. And I'm talking elite, where the dilemma starts, Mike. Well,
Wally, right before my camps this summer, I read Daryl Belfry's book. I had never read it before.
Yeah.
And that was super impactful as a coach with kids. Like, have the rest of you guys read his book?
I have. Have you read both books or just the first one?
Just the first one. I didn't know there was a second one.
There's a second one. The first one's a classic, and I've actually read it 5 times. I'm highlighting with a different colored pen.
Yeah, and it depends on what group you're working. That's what I love about the book. I love that it depends on what kind of level you're working with, because you'll find something different as a coach mentality. I love that he's super open and honest and talks about all the things he did wrong. Because then you see some of it, you're like, oh, I'm doing that. Oh, and then as he grows as a coach and gets better, you realize, oh, there's this whole other level of like being able to get more from the person.
Yeah. I find the most amazing, and I don't know if amazing is a word, or the most impacting takeaway from his first book is his phrase, the student is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is really the undiscovered art of coaching.
Well, the fact that he didn't have a hockey background at that level, like that's what makes him so great, is he had to learn it all from his students.
Yeah. And he had the wherewithal to watch and think deeply about what they were doing and trying to find their comfort zone and get out of it and see if they could function. He would challenge them, but he wasn't telling them. He was pushing them and listening to them, and they were discovering. The athletes were discovering what to do and what they could do differently on their own, because he gave them the freedom. In relation to it, Sammy, I think you might have been on when Daryl was on.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about a camp in Florida with the big boys there, Tavares and Kane and Crosby, and they had made an arrangement to have a large space to themselves with a television. And he ran it by Patrick Kane about doing some video stuff. And he said, Patrick, I'd like you to talk through your shift, what you did, what you were thinking. You think this would work with the guys? And he said, yeah, let's give it a try. And sure enough, it led to him learning, and each player that listened, learning and asking questions about the mind and what was going through the genius players' minds as they played, their awareness of the surroundings. And I think it's something that's acquired over time, mastered over time, but they develop an amazing intuitive connection to the environment and thinking and executing within that at a real high speed. And that amazed me the most is ask the athletes, get them thinking and becoming aware of what they're doing and questioning what they're doing in terms of why and what could be better, and they do that. They invent things. So
I also love that he talked about having different levels on the same time and how to negotiate that and how to find something that each athlete can do and something that each athlete is pushing them beyond. But how to sort of multitask all of the different athletes that are in front of you at the same time. I found that super valuable. That you're not just teaching the same thing to the same people, even though it's the same drill. I love that.
Well, I'd like to bring this down to a minor hockey level.
Well, that's where I was doing it, was at my hockey school where nobody's elite.
And it isn't whether they're elite or not, it's what are they thinking when they're doing things? Mike, you're beginning kids, your kids having fun and just playing and maybe aspiring to get to another level.